There are moments in history when a single decision separates an ordinary life from an extraordinary legacy. Sometimes that decision lasts only a few seconds. A signature, a handshake, a quiet yes, or a courageous no. In July 2007, a young Catholic layman stood at one of those crossroads. On one side was wealth, promotion, comfort, security. On the other side, truth, justice, the gospel, and perhaps death. He chose Christ. Within days, his bruised and tortured body would be discovered on the outskirts of Goma in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He was only 26 years old. Today, the church venerates him as Blessed Floribert Bwana Chui, a martyr who shared his blood not on the battlefield, not in a mission territory, but in a government office, simply because he refused to allow poisoned food to reach innocent families. This is not merely the story of a Congolese customs officer. This is the story of what happens when an ordinary Christian decides that holiness is worth more than money. And perhaps it is also a story about us. Before he became a martyr, Floribert was simply a child. He was born on the 13th of June, 1981, in Goma, a city nestled beneath volcanic mountains in eastern Congo. But beneath its breathtaking beauty lay deep wounds. War, violence, political instability, refugees, poverty. These were not stories Floribert read in newspapers. They were the realities he grew up seeing with his own eyes. Raised in a Christian family by his parents, Floribert learned early that faith was not merely something practiced on Sundays. It was something meant to shape everyday life. Although he was baptized later than many Catholic children, on the 26th of May 1990, he received his first Holy Communion that very same day. A year later, he received the sacrament of confirmation. Those sacraments would quietly prepare him for a witness no one could yet imagine. As he grew older, Floribert distinguished himself as an intelligent young man with natural leadership qualities. He enrolled at the University of Goma to study law. His classmates admired his brilliance. His professors respected his discipline. Before long, he was elected leader of the Catholic students. Yet, what truly made him remarkable was not his academic success. It was his heart. While many young people dreamed only of escaping poverty or becoming successful professionals, Floribert dreamed of changing society itself. He once shared his desire to do great things, to make an impact on history, and to transform reality. Those were not empty words. He intended to live them. In 2001, his life took a decisive turn. He encountered the community of Saint Egidio. Founded in Rome, the community is known around the world for three simple pillars: prayer, service to the poor, and peace. Floribert immediately recognized something beautiful. It was Christianity lived in action. Soon, together with other young people in Goma, he helped establish a local community. Every day they prayed together, but prayer always led them somewhere. It led them into the streets. There they encountered children abandoned by war, children without homes, children who slept on sidewalks, and who begged simply to survive. While many people passed them without noticing, Floribert stopped. He learned their names, shared meals with them, helped feed them, and worked tirelessly to return many of them to school. Whenever possible, he sought to reunite them with their families. For Floribert, the poor were never statistics. They were brothers and sisters. Every child carried the face of Christ. Eastern Congo was deeply divided. Ethnic hatred had left scars across entire communities following the Rwandan genocide and the Congo Wars. Fear often replaced trust. Violence replaced dialogue. But Floribert refused to hate. Friends later remembered that he believed deeply in conversation. He rejected tribalism. He rejected revenge. He believed that every human being possessed an equal dignity before God. And his dream was simple. He wanted a world where, in his own words, all peoples could sit at the same table. It sounded impossible, but that impossible dream shaped every decision he made. After completing his law degree in December 2005, Floribert traveled to Kinshasa for professional training. Eventually, in 2007, he accepted a position with the Congolese Customs Service in Goma. For many young graduates, such a government job represented success, a stable salary, respect, a promising future. But Floribert saw something else. He saw an opportunity to serve. He believed that public office was not a privilege to enrich oneself. It was a responsibility before God. Unfortunately, he quickly discovered that the system around him was deeply infected by corruption. Bribes were common. Dishonest practices were accepted. Looking the other way had become normal. And many believed honesty was simply impossible. But Floribert believed something different. He believed that integrity was possible, even if it came at a terrible cost. And soon, that cost would arrive. Then came the moment that would forever define his life. One day, while carrying out his duties as a customs officer, Floribert encountered a shipment that should never have crossed the border. Thousands of bags of spoiled rice had arrived from neighboring Rwanda. The food was unfit for human consumption. If released into the markets, it would end up on the tables of ordinary families. Parents would unknowingly feed it to their children. The elderly would eat it. The poor, who often have no choice but to buy the cheapest food available, would suffer the most. For many officials, this would have been a routine opportunity to make easy money. All Floribert had to do was look away. No one would ask questions, no one would know, or so they thought. Soon influential businessmen approached him. The message was simple. Accept the money, approve the shipment. Everyone does it. It was more money than many young professionals could imagine earning in months, perhaps even years. But Floribert saw something that others did not. He did not see sacks of rice, he saw human lives. He saw mothers, children, and Christ himself. The words of Jesus probably echoed in his conscience. Whatsoever you do to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it to me. There was only one decision he could make. He refused the bribe. Not only did he reject the money, he ordered the spoiled food to be destroyed. Imagine the courage that required. He knew exactly who he was confronting. Powerful people, people with influence, people who were accustomed to getting whatever they wanted. His decision cost them a fortune, and they were determined to make him pay. Threats soon followed. Friends urged him to be careful. Some wondered whether the risk was worth it. After all, he was only 26 years old. He had dreams, a future, a family who loved him. Why sacrifice everything? Floribert answered with words that history would never forget. As a Christian, I cannot allow people's lives to be sacrificed. It is better to die than to accept that money. What astonishing faith! Notice what he did not say. He did not say corruption was merely illegal. He did not say it was bad for the economy. He said something much deeper. As a Christian, his refusal flowed directly from his relationship with Jesus Christ. For Floribert, faith was not something left outside the church after Sunday Mass. It shaped how he worked on Monday morning. His office became his altar. Integrity became his offering. On the 7th of July 2007, Floribert disappeared. He had been abducted by unidentified men. His family searched desperately. Friends prayed. No one knew where he was. Then, on the morning of July 9, their worst fears became reality. His body was discovered outside Goma. It bore horrifying signs of torture, beatings, bruises, and cruel violence. Someone had tried to silence the voice of an honest man, but something remarkable happened. Instead of silencing him, His murder made his witness louder than ever. The young customs officer who refused dirty money became a prophet for an entire continent. Years passed. His story spread quietly throughout Africa and beyond. People began to recognize that Floribert had not died merely because he opposed corruption. He died because his Christian faith demanded truth, justice, and charity. He was killed because he refused to betray the gospel. His martyrdom was not only about honesty, it was about love. Love for strangers he would never meet. Love for children who would unknowingly eat poisoned food. Love strong enough to lay down his own life. As Jesus himself declared, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Floribert lived those words to the very end. In January 2023, during his apostolic journey to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Pope Francis held up Floribert as a model for young Africans. Speaking to thousands of young people, the Holy Father said that Floribert refused easy money because he was a Christian. Then came a challenge that echoes far beyond Congo. If someone offers you a bribe, do not fall into the trap. Keep your hands clean. What powerful words. Hands that reject corruption became clean before God. Hands that accept dishonest money become stained by the suffering of others. On November 25th, 2024, Pope Francis officially recognized Floribert's death as martyrdom. The Church declared that he had been killed out of hatred for the faith and the virtues flowing from it, especially justice and charity. Then, on June 15, 2025, on the solemnity of the Most Holy Trinity, the Church beatified him at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome. Africa received a new blessed. Not a bishop, not a priest, not a religious brother, but a young layman, a civil servant, a government employee, a reminder that holiness is possible in every profession, even behind an office desk. Following the beatification, Pope Leo XIV described Blessed Floribert as a shining example of the indispensable witness of young people and the laity in the Church. He reminded pilgrims that Floribert's courage did not appear overnight. It grew from 3 foundations that shaped his life in the community of San Egidio: prayer, the poor, and peace. Prayer formed his conscience, the poor gave purpose to his work, and peace shaped the way he treated others. That combination produced a courage that no amount of money could buy. Because this story is no longer just about Congo, it is about every part of Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. It's about every African nation struggling against the poison of corruption. Everyday people are tempted to compromise, to collect what is not theirs, to alter examination results, to demand bribes before doing their jobs, to sell fake medicines, approve unsafe buildings, and to ignore expired food. Every dishonest decision may enrich one person, but it can destroy countless innocent lives. Blessed Floribert reminds us that corruption is never victimless. Someone always pays the price, sometimes with their health, sometimes with their future, sometimes with their life. His witness also reminds us that holiness is not reserved for monasteries or seminaries. Holiness is lived in classrooms, hospitals, markets, banks, police stations, government offices, courtrooms, and construction sites, and every place where a Christian must choose between truth and compromise. But then, the greatest miracle of Blessed Floribert was not that he died. It was that in a world where everyone expected him to say yes, he had the courage to say no. He left behind no fortune, no political office, no earthly power, but he left something infinitely greater: a clean conscience, clean hands, and a pure heart. May Blessed Floribert Bwana Chui intercede for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. May he intercede for Nigeria. May he inspire a new generation of African Catholics who will choose integrity over corruption, service over selfishness, and Christ over compromise. Because in the end, the world is not changed by those who become rich at any cost. It is changed by those who remain faithful at any cost. Blessed Floribert Bwana Chui, pray for us.